This is the Personnel Committee meeting. We'll be starting at 1:03. We'll go ahead and get started with roll call, please.
Commissioner Jantz?
Here.
Commissioner Benton?
Here.
Staff present? Sherry Collins?
Here.
Carlos Castillo?
Here.
Myself, Kyla Dalton Nava, and also present, Jeremy McComb.
Great, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and get started with agenda item number 2, and that is the Personnel Committee Chair's welcome and report. As you know, this is an annual report procedure. And the purpose of this annual report is to evaluate the executive director's performance during the last year. We have a survey that the staff and board went over to gather feedback, to gather comments, and then we meet annually to work on this report. Carlos, do you have any comments that you would like to add at this point?
No additional comments at this point.
Okay, Sherry?
Just wanted to clarify for the record, the response you received in the evaluation is from the board only. The staff not included because that's separate. I just want to clarify that.
Thank you. Sorry if that wasn't clear. The board members do gather information for consideration, and the community members may not be aware that the survey includes information from the public, from the commission chair report, or the committee chair reports, and the executive director's annual report, and the board meeting reports, communications, and so on and so forth. It encompasses all of that into this report. I will keep my comments simple, and we'll move on to agenda item number 3. Carlos, would you please start that procedure for us, please?
Absolutely. So the survey that took place of the board was completed by 10 of the board members. And overall, and I apologize if this isn't exactly what was supposed to be here, but overall, it was an 89% positive rating for Sherry. There was a total of 5 questions. I rated the questions on a scale, the 3 options that were, three options that were available were exceeds expectations, meets expectations, or needs improvement. For the entire set of questions, there were no responses that were needs improvement, so that was very good for Sherry. Thank you. The great majority of them were exceeds expectations. Out of it, basically, I gave it a scale of 150 total points, with 3 points for exceeds, 2 for meets, 0 or 1 for needs improvement. And out of the 150 points possible, she scored 134, which gave us the percentage of 89%. Okay, so that was my my assessment with that. And here I apologize. Let me share my screen real quick so you can see, give it a little bit better context for you. Is that showing? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So these were the questions: leadership and administration. We had the 10 responses, as I mentioned. 8 were exceeds, gave us 24 points for that one. 2 were meets here. Administration and management, 7 responses were exceeds, 3 were meets. Public outreach and public relations, 6 were exceeds, 4 were meets. The board relations, again, 6 exceeds, 4 meets. And for the annual organization of goals and objectives, 7 exceeds and 3 meets. The comments that were given for each of these, I broke them down into individual tabs, and let me make this slightly bigger so you can read as we go through. But here's question number 1 with the leadership and administration. I started off with this comment because that to me was one of the better ones to come out of this, but is as I work on a national level, I know the commission, and this is one of the best in the nations. So that's a kudos to Sherry's from there. And overall, for the most part, these were all very similar in response, in that everything was positive, challenging times through COVID, and Sherry doing well with that. She set clear, important goals, and the administration then and then worked with us to achieve those results. Provides exceptional amount of leadership. So everything very positive within that question. For question number 2, we had the administration and management, and at times it hasn't always gone the way that that they wanted within there, but it still gets to where it needs to within as far as management and administration of the information as it disseminates down the list. Positive, successfully instituted focused business processes to guide and monitor for our agency, provides appropriate amount of administration for the programs for all communities within our deaf and hard of hearing. And last couple of comments were just additional feedback, not really anything too important, didn't really apply to the question. As we move down into 3, they did make a mention that there was a primary, it seemed to be that their focus was on Maricopa County only, but we've taken that and, incorporated that into our upcoming 5-year plan, but that's for later. So feedback was heard, and we're addressing it. Newsletter is great within there. Using the community informative website, periodic emails, just a lot of good feedback within there. Director has been instrumental in providing the following for the goals, including the 5-year plan, as I mentioned, and increasing accessibilities within the for communication and training for our individuals within the community. One of these comments was the addition of Betty to the community, or to the commission, excuse me. Very positive, and glad that we brought her on board and that Sherry did that. And then again, another positive coverage of COVID. As far as board relations go, we always get an answer when asked. Observes board activities and provides all support necessary. We maintain a welcome and open communication for the board members. And then for the perspective of the board members, very good relationship, business runs smoothly, and we have a diverse group of the board members. And then last but not least, with the annual organization and goals, always forward thinking, always meets the goals set. Well, that reading from the website, that one should have been at the bottom, I apologize. Appears to be working hard to serve all sectors within our community. And then the goals and objectives to provide outreach, continued focus for the necessary accessibility for the community within here as well. So overall, like I said, very positive. I really think did very well.
Great. Thank you, Carlos. For committee purposes, we can decide to either have this discussion now, or we can decide to have this discussion without Sherry present. We can ask her to leave and then make that decision and have our recommendation for the board, and then have Sherry join us again later. I'm open to committee discussion.
I guess Commissioner Jantz, I'm not clear on what it is that are you saying that we could make a recommendation to accept the report as written, as presented? What is the decision that you're saying that we would have with or without Sherry present?
Sure, I probably should explain that a little bit more clearly. The goal of the Personnel Committee is to discuss the evaluation and to talk about what it means in regards to performance. Sherry sends her executive director report directly to the commissioners, and so the Personnel Committee will make the recommendation to the general board on what our recommendation is for the outcome of the annual performance. For example, we could say that based on performance, the pay should stay the same. Based on performance, the pay rate should increase, or there should potentially be a bonus, whatever else we may consider. Any feedback that we would like to bring to the board for discussion, we would need the committee, though, to make a recommendation or a recommendation to the board during the board meeting for discussion later tonight. And then the full board will discuss and make a vote. And it'll be a result of the 1 year's performance evaluation.
Thank you for that.
And I'll go ahead and get started with a couple of comments that I would like to point out. There were some themes that I noticed from the board members. Interestingly, COVID has definitely had an impact. Obviously, there was a lot of input as far as COVID. There were some concerns with community involvement when it comes to communication. And in my opinion, this was a huge challenge with COVID. It was really a difficult challenge. And I noticed that other agencies were having a similar struggle. Other government agencies were struggling with communication and transparency. And with COVID, we would have new restrictions in place, which means we would have to go back and reevaluate how we were going to provide services, how we were going to communicate with the public. My feeling professionally and personally as a deaf person is that members of the deaf community definitely prefer to meet in person, to be face-to-face, and COVID has put a lot of restrictions in place and we haven't been able to meet in person. And that has prevented information sharing and has limited options for community members. Most of the time, information is sent out electronically, and not all information is accessible to our community because it's generally in written English. And how we navigate that and how we do better next time, it really is outside the board's control, in my opinion, and really outside of Sherry's control. It's outside of ACDHH's control, especially considering with what we're trying to do with limited funds while following state statute. Considering COVID, I would say Sherry's performance has been exceptional. And we've seen a lot of great work by the leadership from Sherry to the staff, being a great model to the staff. And it was mentioned several times that hiring Betty was one of Sherry's best decisions that she's made. She has made a big impact on the commission. She's an incredible woman with great talents. And I know that she's been a huge benefit to the commission to really help take ACDHH to a new level. That was a brilliant hiring decision, in my opinion. Commissioner Benton, is there anything that you'd like to add?
I would have to concur, and certainly with COVID, I think it's hamstrung the world. So to look at your performance over this past year, this year is an anomaly. And so given all of the challenges that you've had this year, you've done an outstanding job. I mean, the business has continued. While we may all wish that the commission was able to have more direct service, have more, presence statewide, all of those things that we all want for the commission. Those aren't going away. Those are still things that we want from the commission, but understanding that this year they wouldn't have happened under, whatever magic wand circumstances, given what we're dealing with. So I think that you and your staff have done an excellent job, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
The one question that I did have, Commissioner Jantz, when you were talking about the pay part of this discussion, I guess I would like a broader picture before we can embark on that part of the conversation, to understand how are the rest of the staff at the commission going to be compensated as far as increases and things.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't mind 1 sec, Carlos, Commissioner Benton, we do have the opportunity, if we feel comfortable, to either continue with Sherry present for this discussion, or we can also ask her to remove herself for the discussion and then continue on with our discussion at that point. And so if we do need to make that, we need to make that motion if we're going to move forward now with Sherry present, or if we're going to have the discussion without her present. Commissioner Benton, if you're interested in continuing the conversation, we can, or we can entertain a motion for executive session.
Well, first I'd like to hear from Carlos, if you'd like to share the information and then maybe we can decide after we get the information from Carlos.
Well, as far as
Okay, sure.
As far as the questions is what we're looking at, the options of either a salary increase or a bonus structure. For the salary increase, we have with her current salary, we have a slight range that we can move ahead with, or give an increase for. And then there's also the bonus structure. And then within the bonus structure, it's up to 10% of the salary. So we can make a decision from there as far as what options we have within that. So we have both choices, if I'm answering your question.
Okay, Sherry, just 1 minute. I would also like to add, Carlos, some historic information as well. If I recall from the last board meeting, performance evaluation conversation that we had, we did make a motion to the board for a salary increase, and we faced some barriers where Sherry, as the director, had reached the salary cap for her position. And so in order for her to get a salary increase, it would have required reclassifying her position. It was moved by the board and the committee and voted on that the salary increase would go into place, and it went to the governor's office, and it was eventually declined. The board did vote and agree to increase Sherry's salary, and it eventually did not happen at the governor's office for whatever reason it was. So now we're at the point where if we're considering a salary increase potentially to the full board, we have to remember that historically these requests have been declined. And if we're going to make a recommendation to the board that the salary stay the same, then the board will have discussion of potential bonus. If that's something that we're interested in, then the board can vote and make that decision. Sherry, is there anything else that you would like to add?
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Now we can hear you.
Multitasking. Thank you, PD, for the historical information, because Carlos is new. So, and you've already covered that. So the only option left is really leave it as status quo. Bonus seems to be easier to go through for my classification level, and my staff internally, they all had their evaluation. They've had their own increase, and some got a bonus and things like that. I'm the only one left with nothing.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Commissioner Benton?
Well, I appreciate both the historical perspective and just knowing that your staff have already been evaluated and have already received increases or bonuses. And so that would just leave you to deal with now. So then I would recommend, if you wouldn't mind, Sherry, that we have a conversation without you present, and so that we can formulate a recommendation to bring to the full board.
Okay, so I'm hearing a potential motion to move into executive session. Is that correct? This is Commissioner Benton. Yes. This is Commissioner Jantz. I second that. I assume we both agree. So we can move into executive session. I will let Jeremy handle the back end of that.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a breakout room, and I'm going to call out names of who we want in that separate room. So we're going to put Jen in there, Dustin, Carlos. Does Carlos go in? Carlos does, yes, he does, or no? Yes.
Yes.
Kyla, no. Kyla, does she go in?
No.
PV,
Yes.
Sarah Benton.
Yes.
Okay, we're going in now.
Thanks, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
And for those of you who don't know, click join and you'll be in there. This is Commissioner Jantz. Give me just 1 minute to get my Zoom screen reset. And this is Sherry, and we need to get the YouTube stream back up. Okay, Jeremy, I'm ready. I think we've got everyone back.
Still streaming. Just keep going.
Thank you, Jeremy. We'd like to get our meeting started again at 1:48 p.m. We're discussing Sherry Collins' Executive Director Report and Evaluation for July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. The committee has met and discussed in executive session, and now we're back in regular session, and we have a recommendation for the board. And I am open to entertaining a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Commissioner Benton,
I move that the board recommends a 5% merit bonus and a $6,500 spot award for Sherry Collins.
and I second that motion. All in favor, please say aye. Sherry Collins, is there anything that you would like to add?
Just a clarification, while I don't know what was discussed internally, the spot incentive is not part of the E classification. That is separately from the staff who are not. The reason why I want to clarify that, if that's what you want to call it, but the spot incentive is part of the MAP system, the incentive for performance. Me and the deputy director are not part of that system. So I just want to clarify that, so that it's like, for example, the deputy director, I take care of her totally separate. That money is not part of the incentive package because there's a process we have to go through for the state HR system. I just want to make sure that you were informed appropriately so there's no misunderstanding.
Thank you so much, Director Collins. I appreciate that. Carlos, can you assist?
You know what? I will double check, but Sherry dealing with Carmen, she would obviously know that as well. So I apologize if I gave incorrect information as far as that's concerned. When I looked it up, it was the, with submitting it to ADOA, it was all within the bonus, and I figured I could split it out within there, explaining each portion or what the merit was behind that. So I will make sure one way or the other that what we discussed within the committee or within the session gets covered within there. So I'll break it down appropriately.
Okay, my concern is, as the personnel committee, we need to make a recommendation to the full board, and the full board will be meeting and discussing this tonight. So I want to make sure that the committee has an appropriate recommendation and motion for the board in order for the board to have the full discussion and vote on the motion tonight. I have a question for you, Carlos. How much time do you think you need to look into this to get back to the personnel committee for the purpose of discussion and clarification?
30 minutes. If that.
Okay, I'm not sure if we could take a break for 30 minutes and pause the live stream because we do have another meeting scheduled at 2 o'clock. Sherry?
If you want to take like a 5-minute break, we may be able to contact Curtis. And okay, and he can get some clarification. Curtis is still working with us on the side as our consultant, so he can guide Carlo to clarify that if that helps.
That would help immensely. Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then we can reconvene at 2:03. I know that may interfere with the ILC meeting, but I think that we could have that meeting start a couple of minutes late. We want to make sure that we have the correct motion for the board tonight.
And if we could just ask Carlos, when you're talking with Curtis, if it isn't the spot award, is there some other one-time award that can be given to people in the E classification?
Gary?
Commissioner Benton, what you can do, you don't have to, I should clarify the terminology. You don't need to call it a spot incentive. You could say the motion is 5% bonus increase. Because that's confusing. So you can keep what your motion is to clarify that you are recommending a 5% bonus based on the current salary.
But just, Sherry, our plan was really to have two separate pots of money moving forward. One was the 5% bonus, and the other one, in addition to that, was the 6,500 spot award. So that was a separate thing. So it was two things that we were moving forward to get to a 10%. So we were, if we do the 5,000 bonus, is there some other avenue for us to do a one-time award? That's what I was wondering.
The only option, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. To clarify, so really at this point, the only option is the bonus. Because the salary increase itself and reclassification is not the best avenue. But bonus would be the best option based on the percentage that you're recommending.
Thank you, Sherry. Carlos, are you able to get final word on that? Consult with Curtis on it?
I'm trying to get a hold of him right now, and unfortunately I didn't get an answer, but as soon as I hear back, I'll let you know. And I can check with my HR contact as well.
Okay, what I'm wondering is now, because we have a motion that's been voted on and passed, so we will either need to vote to get rid of that motion that already passed, or we will need to modify the motion that's already been voted on and passed and re-vote on that motion before we can make a full recommendation to the board. Commissioner Benton, what I'm wondering is, if we are limited to just the bonus option, we could potentially add our reasoning, clarify the intention, and to say that their portion of it is a one-time amount and it will reach the max because of that. Make the clarification that we're not trying to set a precedent, but based on, and we don't want to set the precedent that the executive director will always get the max amount annually. Commissioner Benton, would you like to make an amendment to the motion that was passed, or pull the amendment, or pull the motion, excuse me?
Can we wait until Carlos gets information from Curtis if there is any other one-time thing that we could use instead of the spot award? If the answer is no, there is nothing else that we can do, then I'm comfortable with making that change to the motion that we do the maximum bonus this time around.
Okay, I intended to take a 10-minute break, but we've been talking for the past 5 minutes. So I think what I'm gonna do is we're gonna have to postpone the other committee meeting what I would like to do is take a 5-minute break, give Carlos some time to find the answer, and that way we can reconvene. Let's take a 5-minute break and come back at 2:03. We can get everyone back. We're just about ready to get started again. Carlos, are you back? Not getting an answer.
He's still working to get a hold of Curtis.
Sherry?
While we're waiting, I would like to make some comment, if I may. Okay.
Sure.
Um,
Do you want us to be
we're
streaming?
still on live.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Sherry.
So, but first of all, appreciate all of the board who participated, the 10 provided, input in my evaluation. As I always believe in open dialogue, if there's anything that we need to address, I always prefer that through the year, not wait till the end of the year. And it has been, and I appreciate that. And I think that in tonight's meeting, when Betty gives her presentation, she has a really nice PowerPoint on our 5-year plan. I think it will help to see some of the areas that we're going to try to improve on. For example, Commissioner Benton, we recognize that the rural community is a huge area that we're concerned about. Especially before COVID, we were supposed to be in Yuma, and that is part of our effort. So instead, we're doing Zoom virtual town hall meeting. We can't be there in person, but I emphasize that internally. And also tonight, you will hear from my report on the budget request that we will be submitting on September 1st. First, we will be requesting, I think, 4 new positions, and one of them will assist Betty's department on the communication outreach. We want to try to really improve. There's always room for improvement for outreach, especially, this is a new trend, I hate to say, but everything is all digitalized, online, and how can we be creative? So I just want to reinforce those concerns, because that's always an issue since we've been here, and we try not to focus too much on Maricopa County, but try to focus on issue on a statewide, the state level, not just in an area. I just wanted to mention that. And I'm really excited with our new 5-year plan, and we really worked hard with the survey from the board and the community. I think it's coming out very nicely.
Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate that, and I would agree. It's been a challenging year, and unfortunately, I think you're right about the new trend, about everything going electronic, everything's digital. That brings new challenges and new barriers. And hopefully, it also leads to new opportunities and for new conversations about how we can engage the rural areas to make accessibility more equitable. I see Carlos is back. Welcome back, Carlos. I'd like to turn the time over to you for your input and clarification.
So I did confirm with Curtis. The proper terminology is bonus, as Sherry has stated. So the parameters that I mentioned within the breakout session still apply. It's just that it's just one pool, and it's referred to as a bonus within there. So as far as separating it out, however we want to justify it within the notes, that's up to us.
Thank you, Carlos. Commissioner Benton?
I'd like to amend my motion that this committee recommend to the board a bonus increase of 10% for Sherry Collins.
I would like to add a second amendment, if that's all right. Sure. The amendment would be just a point of clarification on the amendment. 5% performance bonus. And I would also like to recognize that we would be giving a one-time 5% bonus, recognizing Sherry for her continued excellent work, for a total of a 10% bonus. This is Commissioner Benton. I accept the motion as amended. All right, we have a motion and a second, then it was amended, and then we got a second. So all in favor, aye. Motion carries. We will make the recommendation to the full board. Commissioner Benton, when it's time to make the motion to the board, I would like for you to provide a summary of our discussion and what we talked about here in the Personnel Committee, and to give perspective to the full board on why we are moving forward, and that may bring more conversation from the board. This is Commissioner Benton. Sure, happy to do that. All right, Sherry, we will make the recommendation to the board. We'll see how the board responds, and we'll see how the conversation goes. Of course, we want the community to be aware that the final authority it goes with the governor's office. We'll be talking about that tonight. If the motion carries, excuse me, we've extended our time today in this committee, and now we will be moving to the ILC committee. Do I have a motion to adjourn this committee before we move to the next committee? This is Commissioner Benton. I move that we adjourn. I second that. All in favor? All right, we will be adjourning at 2:10 p.m. for the Personnel Committee. Thank you so much to the interpreters and to Cart and Jeremy. Carlos, thank you so much for your patience with us during this process today. All right, we'll be adjourning this meeting and going to the ILC.
See you
This is Sherry
tonight.
C.
Sorry, it's taking just a second here.